Green for the defense. May I proceed? Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the members of the jury, spelling your last name for the record.
Hello, my name is Becky Conroy. Conroy is spelled C-O-N-R-O-Y. Most people call me Buttons. I have no idea why most people call me Buttons.
What do you do for a living?
For about the last decade now, I've been the owner and operator of Rules River Town. It's the finest theme park here in Midlands.
Does Rules River Town have any competition in Midlands?
We have bits of competition here and there in Midlands, but our main source of competition comes from Rock-to-World.
What is your relationship with Rock-to-World?
Oh, I know the owner, J.C. Longstreet. We go back ways, and I sold him a ride in 2008.
What ride did you sell him?
Well, that would be a ride called the Tunnel of Love.
Why did you sell him that ride?
Well, two reasons. One, the Tunnel of Love did not fit with Rules River Town's theme. And the second reason was I was tired of watching my employees put it in maintenance mode, one after another.
You mentioned maintenance mode. What is that?
Maintenance mode is a feature of the ride that allows all the lights to go off, but the ride to continue operating. As the name states, it is used by maintenance for maintenance purposes.
Mr. Conroy, I want to change pace and talk about Rock-to-World.
All
Have
right.
you ever visited Rock-to-World?
Yes. You see, Buttons knows business, and watching your competition is good for business. And what's good for business is ultimately good for Buttons. So yes, sir, I've been there.
How many times have you visited Rock-to-World?
Well, I've been there about as many times as I have buttons on my suit. So give me a second. One. Sir, I've been there twice.
Mr. Conroy, why did you end up visiting Rock-to-World?
Well, I'd heard a rumor or two that after I sold the ride to JC, he repurposed it. So naturally, I disguised myself, and I wanted to see why he was now calling this Tunnel of Love a Tunnel of Terror.
Why did you end up visiting or did anyone recognize you when you visited Rock-to-World?
No, not at all. Not even a former employee. that I
Objection,
found.
lack of personal knowledge.
Question was, did anybody visit you?
Did anyone recognize you? May I respond, Your Honor? Pursuant to Rule 602, lack of foundation, and 701, opinion of a lay witness, this witness can testify to his rationally based perception. And that's exactly what he's testifying to, what he believed and what he saw at that time.
The answer was
He didn't answer at that point in time yet, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I be heard?
yes.
He is saying that, or he asked if anybody recognized him. There is no way for him to know and see, what other people were thinking about whether or not they recognized him, and therefore this question calls for him to answer with something that lacks personal knowledge.
This is kind of a colloquial concept, and I think that what you're concerned with is more subject to cross-examination of the weight than the admissibility. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Let me answer the question.
Did you believe anyone recognized you, Mr. Conroy?
No, sir, I don't believe that I did. Not even a former employee that I found working Rock-to-World's ticket booth.
Just for the record, I'm going to add that the question dealt with the witness's belief, not anything actual. Please continue.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you purchase admission when you mentioned Cameron Poole? Who was that?
I'm sorry, sir?
First, you mentioned Cameron Poole. Who was that?
Oh, yes. Cameron Poole was the former employee that I found at Rock-to-World working the ticket booth. When I arrived, I noticed him, recognized him, but he did not seem to recognize me. Apparently, Buttons is way better at undercover work than he originally thought. Just, bam, new person.
All right, Mr. Conroy. Did you purchase admission when you saw Cameron Poole?
Yes, sir, I did. I purchased a World Tour Pass on August 29th.
And when you purchased admission, what did you see?
Well, when I purchased my World Tour Pass, I handed Cameron Poole 4 bills, a 20 and 3 5s. And he put them in questionable places.
Where did he put them?
Well, he put the 20 inside the register, which was normal, but he put the 3 5s beneath the register. Now, Buttons knows business, and he knows that the big bills go under the register, not the small ones.
So, Mr. Conroy, after you purchased your admission, Chairman Poole, what did you do?
Well, I proceeded to go into the park and scope out the competition. I made my way over to the ride that was now known as the Tunnel of Terror.
Did you notice any changes or differences in this ride?
Any changes that I saw were purely visual, and I saw two of them, and only two, just like my buttons.
Let's talk about that first one. What was the difference you saw?
Well, the first difference that I saw was they took the Tunnel of Love's heart and they broke it in half. Now, coming from personal experience, a broken heart, it's not all that scary.
And what was the second difference you mentioned?
The second difference? Well, they had turned a swan into a ghost, and that stopped me in my tracks for all of about, well, 0 seconds, sir. Now that's fun.
All right, Mr. Conroy. You said that you noticed visual changes. Did you notice any mechanical differences in the ride?
None whatsoever.
Objection, lack of foundation.
You noticed any mechanical differences?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please explain.
This witness may have owned the ride previously, but we don't know that he saw the ride in depth enough. There's been no testimony to say he was close enough or had any way to know whether or not there were mechanical changes in the ride.
Sustain the foundational reasons.
Motion to strike any effective testimony?
No, because it's still foundational.
Did you-
May proceed.
Yes, Your Honor. Did you see any differences in the way that the ride was operated when you saw it?
No, sir. Even while riding it, it was the exact same, despite the two visual changes of the broken heart and the ghost swan.
Did you get a chance to see the control panel for the ride?
Yes, I did. While I got off the ride, I looked directly into the control panel, and I saw that it looked the exact same as when I owned it. Still 2 buttons, still 1 blue lever.
And to be clear, Mr. Conroy, what day was that?
That was on August 29th.
Mr. Conroy, I want to change pace, and I want to talk about Whit Bowman. Do you
Okay.
know Whit?
Yes, I do.
How do you know Whit Bowman?
Whit Bowman was a former employee of mine at Rules Rivertown.
And what is your opinion of Whit Bowman as an employee?
Well, if I had a choice for Employee of the Year, it would have come down to 2 people.
Objection, relevance.
Relevant as to. Does your, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
This witness is testifying as to the character of Whit Bowman as an employee, and any character evidence such as that is prohibited in court today under Rule 404A1.
May I respond, Your Honor? Character evidence is admissible when it is proper. He's testifying to the reputation or opinion he had of Whit Bowman, not a specific instance of conduct, however, a reputation or opinion. And at the beginning of today's trial, I mentioned a notice of intent to offer character evidence. Now, that intent was required so that pursuant to Rule 404, we could offer evidence of someone's individual opinion or reputation of Ms. Bowman. All the prongs have been met, and this is proper character evidence.
Your Honor, while that notice of intent was signed, we, as the prosecution, then know there was intent, but that does not fit under any specific exceptions for character evidence, and it is inadmissible in court today.
Was there stipulation filed as to characters, witnesses?
It was an intent to offer character evidence.
Can I see that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Both sides signed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, I don't see how 1, 2, or 3 applies, but, because it's specific as to whose character. 4 seems to be an omnibus clause that talks about character in general, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so now we're talking about the character of the defendant,
Yes.
which, which is not excluded from that 4th prong. I don't find the first to be relevant. The 4th prong is relevant, or the 4th section. The defense will offer opinion and a reputation evidence of character of who? I mean, it just falls off the law, and nothing there. The others say character, of his own character, or the victim's character, which would be, either the part or it'd be the fellow that got hurt, or prior crimes and wrongs. So I don't see we've reached any part of any We have not come close to those three, in my opinion.
Your Honor, all those examples are just or. He can offer any of those specific instances for opinion of himself,
They're all
opinion
alternatives.
of,
They're all made in the alternative. You can choose one, any one, all, or any combination you want.
yes,
But the only one that see that possibly could fly is number 4, which says the defense will offer opinion and a reputation evidence of character. Okay,
And that's
that
it.
is, now what's going on here is that this is a offer of character of Whit Bowman. There's nothing saying, no limits to that, as I read number 4. Can you address that for me?
Your Honor, that is signed as an intent. Each of these exceptions regarding relevance, when it comes to character evidence, may be used if that intent is signed, but in addition to the intent form, an exception that is under Rule 404 must also be met, and I don't believe any of those exceptions have been
All
met.
right, let's see 404.
Would you like to see
Yeah.
the rules of evidence?
Your Honor, may I respond on those grounds?
Okay, let me get these real quick. 404A, 1, 2, 3, where am I?
404A.
Okay, you have 404A, you have 1, 2, and 3.
Each of those are exceptions that could be met, and none of them have been met at this point, and no exception has been elicited by the defense to say, or to argue why those have been met.
Okay, all right, you wanted,
The first line of,
let me turn to the defense, because you're the one offering the evidence.
yes, Your Honor.
And this is written in the nature of a prohibition, so you have to show me an exclusion. Or
Yes, Your Honor.
exception, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so 404, go ahead and do that.
Yes, 404A, the first line,
Okay.
says, "The defendant may offer evidence of the defendant's pertinent trait."
Right,
May I be
404.
heard?
What are you looking at?
404A2A, Your Honor.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right.
The first line,
A defendant may offer evidence of the defendant's pertinent trait. Okay, so that's not like he's offering the evidence.
Your Honor, this exception applies to the defendant may offer evidence of the defendant's personal trait. The witness testifying currently is not the defendant, and he therefore cannot offer evidence to the defendant's pertinent trait.
Or, as I see it, the defendant is Whit Bowman.
Correct.
Whit Bowman has a representative, and that represents the attorney, and the attorney is acting in the stead of Whit Bowman, the defendant. So I see it as Whit Bowman is offering this evidence. In other words, coming from the party who's offering this defendant. I don't think this means the defendant in persona, but in general. Okay, so far now we have the defendant may offer evidence of the defendant's pertinent trait, and that's, the pertinent trait is what this gentleman is trying to testify to. So, do you have anything else to tell me about this argument on the first line of A to A?
I don't believe that that has been met by Mr. Conroy testimony today.
Okay. Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, I'll give the law overruled.
Mr. Conroy, what is your opinion of Whit Bowman as an employee?
Well, if I had two choices for Employee of the Year, it simply would have come down to a nail biter between Whit Bowman and myself, Beckett Conroy. But once again, most people call me Buttons. I really have no idea why people call me Buttons.
Thank you, Mr. Conroy. Your Honor, at this time, I have no further questions.
May I proceed? Mr. Conroy, I'd like to talk to you about August 29th of 2012.
Of course.
You visited Rockter World that day,
That I did.
but you were in disguise
Yes, with my hair pulled up, my sunglasses on, no
because
one knew who I was.
you didn't want anyone at the park to know who you were.
Well, of course not. When you're doing reconnaissance and seeing what your competition is doing, it doesn't help when they know you're there.
That's right, Mr. Conroy. Rockter World is your direct competition in Midlands. Is that true?
We have quite a bit of competition around Midlands, but yes, Rock the World is one of them.
And you would say Rockter World is one of your main competitors.
Yes.
And you do not think highly of J.C. Longstreet one bit, do you?
I'm not a fan of his lax safety regulations, but it's not my business, it's not my problem.
Mr. Conroy, but that doesn't answer my question. You don't think highly of him, do you?
If not liking his safety regulations means I don't think highly of him, then yes, I do not think highly of him.
Now, Mr. Conroy, I'd like to talk to you about your experience at Rock the World on August 29th.
All right?
So, you went in disguise and bought a ticket from Cameron Poole.
Yes.
And he rang it up as a $20 ticket, is that true?
Yes, he did,
But you had paid for a $35 ticket.
which I still paid for, yes.
And so you gave him $15 more than was rung up in the cash register, is that true?
That is correct.
So then you proceeded to go to the Tunnel of Terror ride.
Yes.
And when you got to the Tunnel of Terror ride, you saw Whit Bowman working that ride.
That I did. At the very beginning, when I first got on, Whit was working. But as I got off, someone named Billy took over.
And while you were there, you glanced at the control panel, you would say.
Oh, I looked at it, yes.
But you just glanced at it.
It was, I guess, a glance and a look are pretty darn similar. Yes, I looked at it.
And would you agree with me that there's more to a control panel of a ride than you can see on the surface of it? Is that true?
No. The Tunnel of Love and the Tunnel of Terror shared the same control panel. There were no differences whatsoever, and they had 2 buttons and 1 lever.
But you couldn't see inside that control panel, could you?
I saw the face of the control panel.
Yes, but you can't see all of the mechanics just by looking at the control panel, can you, Mr. Conroy?
I mean, you can't see all of the mechanics, but I saw the control panel, which
So-
controls it.
So, Mr. Conroy, you wouldn't know if any of the mechanics under the control panel or at any other part of the ride that you can't see with your eyes have changed since it was sold in 2008.
I guess I couldn't speculate to such a thing, but as I rode the ride, as I looked around the ride, it looked no different.
So
other
there
than
were no
those 2 changes.
Visual changes, but you don't
No,
know
there
if
were 2 visual changes.
Okay, yes, but you don't know if there were any additional changes.
No.
Some changes could have taken place that you couldn't have seen.
It's possible, but as I rode the ride, everything seemed the exact same. As I looked at the control panel, all seemed the exact same. Only differences I saw were the broken heart and the ghost swan.
Okay, now, Mr. Conroy, there's another thing I'd like to talk to you about that ride. And you said you noticed there's an emergency exit door in the Tunnel of Terror.
Yes,
And it was locked
that it was. On the 29th, it was locked.
from the inside of the park. The emergency exit door you saw was locked.
Yes,
And that's, just for clarity, on the 29th, you saw the door was indeed locked. The lock wasn't just there. Is that correct?
I saw the lock there. I can't attest to if it was actually locked or not. I didn't go and try and open the door. I was strapped in the ride.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Conroy. And finally, I'd just like to talk to you. You worked with Cameron Poole and Whit Bowman at Rules Rivertown. Is that true?
I employed them at Rules Riptown, yes.
And while you were there, you were aware that they were friends. Is that true?
Yes.
No further questions at this